Okay, so welcome everybody. Very excited to be with you today. Very excited to see so much interest in this. I'm not surprised. I've been doing these Oracle Guided Learning for PeopleSoft presentations over the last 2 years, and we're just seeing more and more interest with this, and we're really excited about it. Just a quick housekeeping. We will be doing, so I'm going to be covering mostly the beginning, the concept of Oracle Guided Learning, the digital adoption platforms, technical sort of aspects of it, what it does, that sort of thing. At the end, we'll talk about both licensing as well as the pre-built content that we have called Starter Kit. We'll talk about that at the end. So if you have questions about licensing or the content that you're seeing, hold those off. I'll answer that at the end of the presentation. Any questions about sort of how the product works, all that kind of stuff, definitely put that question in the Q&A. Susan will be monitoring that and jumping in if there's a question that we need to answer real time. So with that, I'll get going. This is me. My name is Cameron McClurg, I'm Vice President with SpearMC. I've been doing PeopleSoft work for a very long time. In fact, my entire career. Most of that is not as consultant, though. Most of it was in a couple of roles with different organizations. One organization you've heard of, Expedia. One you may have heard of, Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center is and was a HUG member, and I participated in the HUG Alliance Conference as well as was on a PAG for 4 years. So my role really in my entire career has been in perhaps your shoes, meaning responsible for supporting PeopleSoft internally, doing training, rolling out new features, all of that. So I really know how this product, once I saw this product, Oracle Guided Learning, in the last couple of years, I immediately saw the value of how that would help. And I wish I would have had it, frankly, when I was doing that support for so many years and trying to do training with folks and understanding that most of our support tickets are really not bugs with the software, but the support tickets are really about training and getting the user to understand how to use the system. So I'm really excited about it. I have been with SpearMC, like I said, for 5 years, and I oversee several different aspects of what we do with SpearMC, but one of them that obviously today is all about Oracle Guided Learning. SpearMC, just a quick couple of slides on SpearMC at the beginning, and we'll get right into Oracle Guided Learning. We've been around for a while. We started in 2004, basically as a PeopleSoft training organization. And we expanded from that across the country as well as our offerings to be way beyond training. But training is really the root of how we started, and it really permeates everything we do. We want to make sure that we really empower our customers and users to understand the software, understand the roadmap where the software is going, and really make sure that they have a sustainable self-supporting model and understanding the software. That's really where we come from. And that legacy has really led to the role that Oracle asked us to play, which is taking Oracle Guided Learning out to the PeopleSoft audience. And I will get to that a little bit more. As I mentioned, I personally have been part of the HUG for coming up on well into my second decade, I could say it that way. And then, of course, SpearMC has sponsored the HUG since 2014, where you'll see us at the Alliance Conference. You'll see us at regional conferences. We're a big fan of the HUG, and we want to make sure that we continue to support the mission of the Higher Education User Group. We are all about PeopleSoft. That's all we really focus on. It's the core of what we do. And so really, as anything relates to PeopleSoft, whether it's a type of consulting services in different kinds of the pillars that exist within PeopleSoft, the type of work we do, whether it's managed services, staff augmentation projects, cloud services as it relates to PeopleSoft, lift and shift to cloud, that type of thing. In the lower left side, you'll see really where we have this cross-section of Oracle Guided Learning, which is our legacy of how we empower our users through learning, as well as how we've embraced emerging technology. The cross-section of that really led to, as I mentioned, the request from Oracle for us to take this Oracle Guided Learning product and make it relevant, make it big for the PeopleSoft customers. And that's what we've been doing over the last 2 years. Very proud of our specialization within Oracle. And of course, that has led to both recognition by Gartner, as well as this last year, we were certified by AICPA for our SOC 2 certification, which is a reflection of our focus on supporting and protecting our customers' data. So we're really proud about all of this recognition and all that. Last thing I'll just mention here within the world of SpearMC is we are also now a member of ENI. And if you don't know what ENI is, it's a organization that all of you can sign up with for free, and you are allowed to leverage the contracts that ENI have been put in place that were competitively bid. In this case, for PeopleSoft services, we're the only PeopleSoft partner that's on that contract, and you and many of you are already members of ENI. Not only do you get to leverage that contract and essentially avoid a lengthy RFP or procurement process, but you actually also get special pricing as well as even rebates. So you actually get rebates on anything you go through ENI. So I know we might not have a lot of procurement people on the call today, but just so you know, this is out there, and your procurement people will know about the ENI contract. So it's really something we're very happy with, and we've already seen a lot of action on this. A lot of organizations are already interested in leveraging the ENI contract to procure PeopleSoft services. Okay. With that said, let's get into what we are here for, which is really all about Oracle Guided Learning. This is potentially what your organization, some back office, maybe on somebody's bookshelf. This is what it looks like. And well, how do I know that? Because this is what it looked like for me for many years. I perhaps even wrote some of those manuals that I was very, very proud of. And we spent a lot of time building those manuals, job aids, desktop procedures, all of that. We spent a lot of time. In fact, I still have some of them today because I'm very proud of what I built at some point. I wrote those guides. But guess what? Users don't have this available when they need it, which is in the application. So this type of model, this legacy model of what we call look-away training, is really something of the past, and it's something that many organizations want to get away from. Spending all this time on writing a document that becomes stale the moment it's published, the moment it's printed, it becomes stale. And so many people went from this to UPK, which is really just a digitization of the same concept. It's still look-away training. You're not in the application. You're looking away. You're in some other place getting access to how something is supposed to work. This whole model, really, I say this model is based on the idea that you're asking your users to memorize how to do something in PeopleSoft. And guess what? Many of your users don't care to memorize how to do things in PeopleSoft. They would prefer to get guidance real time in the application. Many other organizations, many other software organizations and software companies have already figured this out. So let's talk about that. It's a rise of a new thing called digital adoption platforms. And you see this all over the place. In here, I've got two images of from my cell phone. This is an Apple iPhone. I've got my weather application. I've got my mail application. After an iOS upgrade last fall, I came back into my application and I wanted to look at the weather. It was the same exact application that was there before, or at least that's what I thought. But you see this pop-up message on top of that app that says, tap here for more detail. So the software maker, essentially, which is Apple in this case, has a bit of a challenge. We have a rapidly changing software. It looks the same, but there's new features that we want our users to know about. But the idea that a user would sit down and take training on an iPhone before using it is absurd. And so why do we still take that model into PeopleSoft or other applications? So many software makers are dealing with this with something called digital adoption platforms, which is essentially in-app guidance that allows you to have an overlay on top of your application that provides walkthroughs, task lists, smart tips, self-help menus. All of that is controlling essentially the experience of the user and helping them do things without the traditional model of look-away training. And this has really sort of been revolutionary. You've probably seen this all over the place. If it's not done well, perhaps it might be a little bit annoying because you're going to a website and you just want to do the thing you're doing on that website, but you first have to say, okay, got it, etc. Sometimes that's helpful, right? So we want to make sure that we implement this the right way, but it is essentially dealing with that question of how do we get this help to people? So Oracle has built something for this. It's called Oracle Guided Learning. Oracle Guided Learning is now real time in the application. This is not, you don't need to have a training PeopleSoft environment, which is not production. It's a training environment. You can do it that way if you'd like to, but the real power is that this is a real time embedded help in the application itself, in your production application. So it's real time embedded in the application. So when we talk about that, it really opens up the idea that this could be really a faster time to productivity for not only your users who are going to be using the application on a daily basis. Think about new benefits administrators who are coming in, that they're new hires, and you need them to know how to do things in PeopleSoft because they're going to be doing it all day. Or somebody that is in student enrollment that is going to be doing a repetitive task. You want them to learn that thing, and you want them to give that guidance in the application, and perhaps they only use it until they memorize how to do it. But the second group of people who are your casual users, they're never going to memorize how to do something in PeopleSoft. Think about students who just need to come in and look up their grades, or a faculty member who needs to go in and update those grades. And they don't want to memorize how to do that. They just want some help, right? You've got employees coming in for employee self-service and HR that just need to do a life event. They don't memorize how to, say that they have a baby, or where do I add that as a beneficiary. I don't memorize that because it happens so infrequently. So this in-app guidance allows them to be productive from day one without putting a burden on a support or a training organization to help them do those activities. The third part of OGL, which is really a game changer, is the ability to see what's happening, who's doing what in the application. It's a level of analytics that I'll show you in the OGL application that shows you these dashboards and gives you all sorts of ability to see what's happening in the application. This is a game changer for a support organization who is taking perhaps phone calls or emails from a user saying, I don't know how to do something. You can now look behind the scenes and say, did this user actually run this guide in PeopleSoft? Yes, we saw them run it, but they stopped midway through, or no, they didn't run it all. That's incredibly important pieces of information for a support analyst who might want to be able to use that information to then support that user and show them how they can get that in-app guidance and perhaps reduce support tickets. And just to sort of throw out some numbers, Oracle themselves use OGL for their own internal HR application. All their employees, I can't remember exactly how many employees they have. It's in the tens of thousands, maybe even over 100,000. I can't remember exactly the number, but they reduced their support tickets in HR by 70% simply by offering Oracle Guided Learning within their own PeopleSoft HR app, the cloud HR application. So we're seeing tremendous, and Kaiser Permanente is reporting similar numbers in terms of the reduction in support tickets. So we're seeing that across the board, that organizations are vastly reducing the support tickets because the ability to embed Oracle Guided Learning in the application. I do have several slides here that show screenshots of the application or how it's used in PeopleSoft. But instead of going through a static deck, I'm going to show you all of this real time in the application. With that, I'm going to switch over to my other application. Susan, are there any questions at this point as I switch over?
No questions at this point.
All right, great.
You're good to go.
All right, I am now going to be logging in to PeopleSoft Campus Solutions. I'm in an 8.6.0 environment, and this is a recent PUM image. I think we're on image 29 here, and version 8.6.0. Everything looks, and if you're familiar with 8.6.0, this is the new sort of Redwood theme. So this all is just normal PeopleSoft, right? But you'll notice down here, I do have a widget. This widget is my Oracle Guided Learning widget that at any time, it's called the Help Center, at any time I can come in here and look up any specific guide and say, I want help on how to do something, quick enrollment of a student. Any of these things can be helpful as a means of looking up how to do something. So right now, I'm going to pull up one for ethnicity, and we're going to run through this specific guided process. So I'm going to click on this entering ethnicity information, and immediately what's going to do is going to launch me into a guided process. Now, again, think of the scenario here as I'm in my real production environment. This could be a student, it could be an employee, it could be a faculty. Okay, so in this case, I'm seeing initial sort of opening saying, you're going to run this guide. This is very similar to if you were to kick off, let's say, a UPK. For those of you familiar with UPK, you have kind of an initial sort of overview of what you're about to do, right? So this is, again, the idea that you're going to introduce the topic, what you're going to do right now, okay? Now, you don't have to have this, but this is just sort of the way we designed this guide. So I'm going to go ahead and click on next. It's now going to take me to the next steps. You'll notice it has a little pointer right here to the navigator. I'm going to go ahead and do the thing that it's telling me to do. Select the navigator. I'm going to click on that. And as I do the thing it tells me to do, you'll notice that it's now taking me to the next step. Select menu. As I do the things that it's asking me to do, it's going to continue to take me through the steps of this guide. Campus community, you'll notice right there that it scrolled me down to the right spot in the menu. I didn't scroll, it scrolled for me. So it's taking me right to the right spot. And as you can imagine, in this and in many cases in PeopleSoft, sometimes these things that you're trying to get to in PeopleSoft, the menu, can be embedded 4 or 5 steps. So the ability to quickly just select the thing that's telling you to select gets you to the right spot every single time. In this case, I'm now about 4 steps through. I'm now 5 steps. Eventually, I get to the right spot in ethnicity. Now, if I had to guess that was in campus, community, personal information, biographical, again, if I had to memorize that, then maybe I would know where to go. But a lot of people don't memorize these things, right? And it's like, how do I get there? So this offers, first off, a direct link right into the navigation. Now, we can also do this through the search bar, which is really how Oracle would like you to do instead of going through the menu. And I'll show you one like that later. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on ethnicity. It's now going to take me into that page, and it's going to continue to offer me guidance through the process. So here, it doesn't know when I'm done entering search criteria. So the step is to say, hey, enter your search criteria. Now, at any point, I could offer help and additional links out to additional documents, maybe policy documents, anything that I want to link out to, I can do that. In this case, it doesn't know when I'm done. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some information like the name Smith. And you'll notice that my search button right here is highlighted with a border around it. I'm going to go ahead and click on search. It takes me to the next step, which says select the name of the person you want to update. So I will go ahead and pick somebody. I'll go ahead and pick this person, Alex Smith. Again, point is, at every step of the way, it's basically taking me to the next step. When it's asking me to do something, it's going to auto bring me to the next step. Now, in this one, it's telling me there's required fields, especially regulatory region and ethnic group, but it also tells me, hey, there's this other little thing called these question marks. These question marks is what's called a smart tip, okay? A smart tip is something you can embed anywhere on any page. This could be outside of actually taking what's called a process guide. You could just have these smart tips independently on any page. You can also control when they show up. In other words, based on the action of the users, I want a smart tip to show up, or I always want this smart tip to show up. You'll also see some differences here between the red question mark over here and gray ones over here. That's simply a demonstration that through something called branding, we can control the look and feel of these smart tips to maybe be consistent with how you want them to look. And we can also offer sort of what's called a class, or create a class that's embedded in here that allows us to call these ones red and these ones gray. So there's ability to control that experience and say, we want these to stand out in a different way. Now, in this case, it's offering me some help about this little message here. I'm going to hover over it and it says, go ahead and if appropriate, click the person is Hispanic or Latino. So I will go ahead and click on that. You'll notice then it says to say when that happens, you need to say if yes, select ethnic group. You can also hover over this and get some more information. What does this mean? Oh, it means that, if yes, if you've selected that person as Hispanic or Latino, then go ahead and do the drop down here and select whatever you'd like here. So I'm going to go ahead and select Central American, and it's going to obviously populate my ethnic group down there. And at any step of the way, I feel like I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and click on next and say, well, what's next for me? It's going to now tell me, go ahead and save. Save that, and I'm done. It's a very simple guide. It's about, what was that? About 7 or 8 steps, including about 4 or 5 on the menu. But it's a very simple, small process. A lot of times we see with our training guides and with UPKs that they're massive guides. They have to cover every single scenario. Well, the ability to make these guides much smaller and helpful to offer those smart tips at different places. We can even use things called branching logic or step conditions that allow us to take the user in a different direction if they do certain things. Allows for a much shorter experience for that user. It's a much better experience, and they're more likely to use it if it's a better experience. It's really helping them. So here we just have a final conclusion saying thank you. If we wanted to offer a link to a help desk or send email, we could embed that link in here. As the user, you can say that you can go back. But I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, I'm done with this. What you'll notice is now a feedback loop that allows, and you don't have to have this. This is an option to turn this on. But we have this feedback loop to say, was this guide helpful, and offer a rating and also offer some help. Can you add info related to blah, blah, blah. Now, all of this feedback now goes in the back end of the Oracle Guided Learning tool into that piece of analytics that I was telling you about previously, and allows us to compare at a macro level, how is this guide, doing? How is this helping people? Well, it's kind of a low rated guide. Let's dig into some of the comments about how this guide could be more helpful. Or maybe we're looking, yes, it's a good guide, but we want some more information. Again, all of this is completely optional to turn this feedback loop on. So I'm going to go ahead and submit that, and I'm done. It's a very simple process. I'm back in PeopleSoft, just doing whatever I want to do here. And it was a very, very simple process to do that.
And Karen, I have a few questions that have popped up.
Go ahead.
The first one is, can guided learning docs be changed to reflect your organization's process? And are any guided learning docs delivered?
Yeah, I'll answer both those questions. First off, Oracle Guided Learning doesn't know the difference between a delivered PeopleSoft object and a delivered object. So your guides can handle your own custom process flows, your custom fields, custom pages. It doesn't know the difference. So you would be able to build all of those. But related to the content, Oracle does not produce any content for Oracle Guided Learning for PeopleSoft. So 0. That's where SpearMC comes in. So not only are we taking this out and supporting the licensing and all that, but we have built pre-built content, what we call our starter kit, which offers guided help, just like you saw, that helps on a list of typical transactions or tasks within PeopleSoft. That starter kit is available to purchase, and you would then take that and modify it to your heart's content. It's very easy to turn those guides on or off. It's very easy to change the language. Obviously, we have a SpearMC logo in there that's a placeholder for you to put your own logo on there. We expect you to be able to take those starter kits and modify them and use them. And they really work out of the box in your environment because it's working on an HTML layer. So they'll work out of the box for you, but you would make some slight modifications to it to make it work for you.
And I have about 3 to 4 more questions. Is styling done with using CSS?
Yes, there's CSS involved in the branding and styling, and we cover that as part of our training. When you purchase OGL, we offer, and I'll talk about this later, we offer a training session, and we can discuss all that, how that works with CSS. But let me just say that you don't need to have any specific HTML experience in building OGL guides, and I will show that a little later.
And then, are smart tips always shown to users using OGL or to everyone who doesn't use OGL?
So when you turn OGL, it's available for everybody according to if you'd like to be available for everybody. So there's some control of who sees what with OGL, but when you turn on OGL, let's say in a production environment, it's there for everybody. So your smart tips are available to be put on any screen. But again, there is conditions that you can put on to control when that shows up or even who it shows up for.
Okay. And oh, sorry, were you done?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Does OGL work fine with both fluid? Wait, I'm sorry. Is OGL works fine with fluid for mobile?
Okay, so two questions there. Does it work with a fluid? Yes, because this is fluid here. Fluid for mobile, your guides can be marked as a mobile guide, which would then make them available on mobile devices. When you do that, you're going to write your guide completely differently because you have a lack of real estate on your mobile device. And we help you with all that when we do our training and show you how to do that. You're going to write your guides in a completely different way. And on a mobile device, the guidance does not show up as a pop-up next to, let's say, a tile here. It shows up at the bottom of your screen. And I'm not demoing that today, but we can talk about that offline.
And just a couple more quick ones right here. Is it available for all PeopleSoft applications, HCM, FCM, and Cabinet Solutions?
Absolutely. It's available for all PeopleSoft, and I'm going to do a demo in HCM and financials.
And last one to answer for now is this delivered, or do we need to create each OGL for each process from scratch? Same question for smart tips.
Yeah, so I just answered that a little bit. So again, Oracle does not deliver any guides. So there's no content that Oracle delivers. We deliver pre-built content though, as I mentioned. I'll explain that a little bit more later. So let's keep moving. So hold off any other questions, keep moving. And I want to show a couple more things here before so it might answer a few more questions you might have. Before I go on to HCM and financials, which I'm going to show you a couple demos in there, I'll just show you that in addition to the actual guided process, let me type in, for example, grade, and at any step of the way, I can also see a visualization of that guide. In this case, and there's language, a terminology changes. It used to be called the step guide. It's now called a job aid. So go ahead and click on this, and it now shows you the overall process at a high level. You can just look at the process without actually running through it. Now, this is great if you just want to review the process. If I want to even send this process, there's the ability to email this guidance, this job aid to somebody. I can do that straight from here. That creates a link that will then allow people to come back in and look at this. I can print it out. If you really want to print out a guide, you can still do it. Although I would suggest to you that that's really not the point here to print out guides. We were able to do that a long time ago. Hopefully you're understanding that this is an in-app guidance at this point, but you can print it out if you'd like to. In addition to the job aid, you also have a video that you can see, and that will then take you through step by step through the process. So as I kick this off, it will then right there. You'll see this sort of just navigate through and just click through. Now, this is not a this is not a video that I'm editing and putting voiceover or anything like that. This is a completely automated process that takes essentially screenshots of the steps and puts it into a streaming kind of step-by-step video to show you doing the thing. So don't think of this as something that would replace if you're building some really great sort of videos in Captivate or other video editing software. You can still do that, and you can embed those videos into a guided process. This video here is simply an automation of the steps, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that.
Okay.
Go ahead. Is there a question there, Susan? Okay. I'm gonna log out, and I'm going to navigate over to an HCM environment and then financials. I want to show you a couple more concepts in these other environments. So let me navigate into my HCM, and sometimes it doesn't like it when I go from one environment to another. Hopefully I won't get a little login problem. If I do that, I have to close my window and come back in, but let me try this. All right, so I'm in HCM now. And here you can see another concept. And the concept is that Oracle guided learning allows us to pop up messages at any stage on any page. Okay. So here, the concept is a user might be coming in for the first time into an environment, and we want to offer them a welcome message that says, hey, welcome. For more information, maybe click, email this. For a starter on how Oracle Guided Learning works, click on here. So the same concept, the same technique would be used for something like, hey, the system's going down tonight, so be aware of this, save your work and get out. It could be something that we offer, let's say, benefits open enrollment, and a whole quantity or a whole group of users are going to come in on Monday and need to do open enrollment, and we want to welcome them and offer them some advice or guidance on how they're going to do open enrollment for this year. So the same technique can be used for a lot of different scenarios, pushing information out to people. The other one that's really great that I like is, let's say you've established that there's a bug in a certain process, and that bug might not necessarily be with the software, it's just the way people are doing things that is causing problems downstream. We can, instead of in the traditional model without Oracle Guided Learning, the way we would handle that would be a blast, an email blast to everybody that's potentially a user of this functionality. Well, what if it's something related to benefits open enrollment? Or what if it's related to something that is a broad sort of community that might be eligible to do that thing? Maybe it's a manager coming in and doing approval. Well, typically with those emails, we have to blast the entire organization because anybody could potentially hit on this issue. With Oracle Guided Learning, we can be precise. We can be more specific to that specific functionality. We don't need to grab the entire audience of potential users of the thing. We could simply push a message to the individuals who are about to hit on that specific issue. Maybe they come in and they're in a manager and they're going to go do an approval, and we want to let them know at that moment that we notice there's a bug with this and offer them guidance around that issue. At that point, we're sending that message simply to people who are about to hit on that message, as opposed to a complete email blast to an entire organization or a huge community of people who is not going to be very happy with us sending an email. The ability to control this messaging and look at even conditions and say, when do I want to show this messaging, is really a game changer with Oracle Guided Learning. So I'm going to go ahead and click on close that. And I'm going to run another process. And this one's banking. And so what I'll show with this one is I'm going to add banking details as an employee here. I want to add some banking details. So I'm going to click on this. What you'll see here is that this is now going to take me, instead of through the menu, it's now going to take me through the home pages. And you'll see that this works exactly the same way, just with different sort of steps. So now I'm going to employ self-service. Again, it notices that my banking tile is down a little bit below, so it's going to scroll me down. Now note that this messaging is tied to this specific tile for banking. If my banking tile would have been on the top left, which is something I could do, right? Because I can move these tiles around, this messaging will follow where that tile is. It's not looking for a specific spot on the screen. It's looking for a specific HTML object, and it's tying my messaging to that specific HTML object. This works great in the fluid model where people can have tiles all over the place, or even in a case where you might have security where somebody doesn't have access to something that's not going to show them if they don't have access to a specific tile. So here I am going to take the next step, which is clicking on add, which sometimes that little button is a little bit hidden, that little plus sign, and people don't know that's the add button. So I can sort of draw people's attention over there. And here I'm going to now enter some information. Now, it doesn't know when I'm done. So it's going to offer some information saying, go ahead and do all these things. And when you're ready, go ahead and click on next. So let me go ahead and fill out some information here. I'm going to put in an account number. It's going to ask me to type in the account number again. And I think I'm done. So I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And it takes me over and says, click on save. I've clicked on save, and that's it. I'm done. It's taking me through that process. I may not memorize how to enter banking details, because I'm not going to do it very often. But by simply knowing that I've Oracle Guided Learning there, I can always pull that up and get help with that. Again, the feedback loop at the end, I can skip this if I don't really want to fill that out at this moment. Okay, so this is an HCM. But it's showing a model that's moving through the home pages and tiles. Again, just a different model for offering that in application guidance.
And Cameron, I have a couple more questions.
Oh, yeah. Before I go to financials, I'll pause for questions.
Yeah, just a couple here. We have like 13, but I'm just going to pick out a few here right
Okay.
now. When installing PUMs or updating forms, is there update effort required of OGL if the functionality is the same?
So PUM images could change a page with respect to the HTML object, but if the same HTML object is just in a different spot on the page, then there's no updates needed for OGL guides. Generally speaking, because we know how PUMs work, generally speaking, PUMs don't require any maintenance or updates to your OGL guides. We do always recommend that you run them through, you test them to make sure that they're always working when you do an update, but it's not, there's no maintenance necessarily required. People Tools upgrades are a different story. People Tools upgrades do require a more significant effort to update, and that's because People Tools upgrades will change HTML objects. If you're familiar with the change from 859 to 860, there's a big change with respect to how search works. Okay. And the entire process now different, and they're different HTML objects. So our starter kit content was built in 858 to 859, and now we're updating it and pretty much done with 860. But all of that has had to be transitioned into the new model of how search works in 860. So People Tools upgrades, yes, there's updates. PUM image updates, most likely no updates needed.
Another quick one. Are the smart tips there when only when clicking the OGL widget or anytime a user is on the page?
You have complete control of that. So when you want them to show up, in the one I showed previously, you saw that it was embedded on a page. Whether I went through that whether I went through that process guide to enter ethnicity information or not, I had those smart tips on that page. So that's the way we set that one up. You can see here, I've got a smart tip here associated with home pages and showing people that they can personalize tiles and click here to do it. This will launch into another process guide. I have complete control when those smart tips show up.
Okay. And can content be segmented by user role?
Yes, you can do that. We believe that that's a lot of maintenance, but there is a way to do that, and we can show that to you in our training on how to create a link between OGL processes and PeopleSoft roles.
And yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me keep going because I do have some more things I want to get through, and I don't want to run out of time. So I'm going to log out of this one, and I'm going to go into a financials environment, and this will be my last demonstration in PeopleSoft, and then I want to show the OGL tool itself as well. Okay, so here I'm in a financials environment. You still see the widget. You see a couple of different smart tips. So here you can see the concept of that I want to offer guidance to people for perhaps even 3 different ways. Each one of these things would launch into its own process guide to understand how homepages work, to personalize a homepage, or even add a specific homepage. All of these would take them into a process of how to do those things. Of course, they would have to have security to do those things. Nothing in OGL will create a security opening for people. You're still confined to what a user can do within security, but it will show them, if they do have security, how to do those things. I'm going to show you this one up here. This is a little smart tip that we've established that's related to search. I did this one because I know in the transition throughout the years that many longtime PeopleSoft users continue to use your menu, and search is the way that Oracle wants you to do it. And frankly, I'm still kind of a dinosaur going through menu, but we built this to help people see that search is a really great option for you, and that you can find hard to find menu items or content. So I'm gonna go ahead and click onto this one, and we're gonna navigate into this. So this is again offering me a little bit of guidance about what I'm about to do. I'm gonna click on next. Notice this one is completely grayed out behind. It's drawing my attention up here to the menu button. So it's saying, you know what, I want to draw, as an OGL administrator, OGL developer, I want to draw people's attention up here to the menu. So I'm going to click on that menu. Notice there's no next button because I'm going to tell the person to go ahead and click on this. It's going to draw my attention down with what's called a beacon. There's these red sort of pulsating lights here, or a circle, and it's drawing my attention to go into accounts payable. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it says enter search keywords like voucher ID, payment ID, or vendor. For now, I'll go ahead and type in a word like Midton. So I'm going to type in Midton. and it says, yep, here's your search results are going to display. I could offer guidance on, more information about how the search works. I can offer whatever I want to tell somebody about this. In this case, I've just taught somebody they can type in the name of a vendor and get all the vouchers and payments related to that vendor. So I'm going to click on next. I'm now going to tell the person to switch back to menu, and I'm going to go ahead and do that as the user. I'm going to go back, switch to menu, and I'm clicking on next, and it says, go ahead now enter a word like voucher. Now, again, this could be anything in HCM or Campus Solutions. And it says now, yep, so now pages related to voucher are going to now appear here. So I'm teaching them now that not only can search for content, but they can also search with the through the search bar, I can look for menu items as well. Very simple, very easy. I'm done with a couple of steps. I've now perhaps retrained somebody to perhaps consider using search now instead of going through the menu. And as we saw previously, when it's 5-6 steps to get that spot in the menu, maybe they might consider using search going forward. Again, that feedback loop is there. The last thing I'm going to show you here in this demo is the ability to put it together a task list. So here you can see a grouping of different guides. I've got 5 different guides that would be considered in this use case, maybe a new user. Maybe a new user comes in, a new employee, a new manager, a new student, a new faculty, and there's a certain things we want to let them know that they should do in order to get themselves set up in PeopleSoft. Maybe it's a tour of the things that are, that the capabilities of the application. Maybe it's setting up their preferences. Maybe it's understanding search or understanding the process monitor. If I click on this, it will actually launch it out. Oops, let me close that and click it like this. And you'll see that it actually launches into its own little task list that's a sort of a hovering window. Now, I could actually make this hovering window auto launch when a new user comes in. It knows this person is the first time they've come to PeopleSoft, and I can actually launch this for them and allow them to then see these guides, do them one by one. You'll notice that one is already completed of 5 because I just did search, and allows them to even reset that if we want to allow that to happen, to allow them to reset it. So once they complete those 5, we can make this task list go away. Again, great option for both a new user having to do certain things, but also in a use case of, for example, individuals who do repetitive tasks and need to do multiple steps in a row. Okay, now with that, I want to hold off on any questions because I'm kind of running out of time. So I want to show the OGL tool itself. I'm going to log into Oracle Guided Learning now, which is a SaaS application. Okay, so it's SaaS, even though your PeopleSoft might be on-prem, your PeopleSoft is licensed through a legacy model, doesn't matter. OGL is a SaaS application. It will connect to your PeopleSoft wherever your PeopleSoft exists, on-prem, cloud infrastructure, it doesn't care. Each one of these guides here, or each one of these tiles, I should say, is a piece of content within Oracle Guided Learning. So for example, I have smart tips. I have a process guide. I have something called a hotspot, which is tracking when people click on approval tile. I'm tracking the metrics around whenever they click on that. I can see what they're doing. I could have a survey, okay? I could have a message that pops up, a welcome to the login stream type of message. So different kinds of content. Right now, I'm going to look into the one that we just built, we just ran through, which is our search. I'm going to go ahead and click on the editor of this, and you're going to see how easy it is to build these guides. So I'm going to click on the editing. It's going to launch me into my PeopleSoft Financials environment, and it's going to create this overlay, which is the OGL sort of toolbar on top of PeopleSoft. Okay, so let me click on over here and look at all my steps. And you can see that this has 9 steps in this process. So I'm going to click on the second step. And this was the step that was pointing me up to this menu button right up here. You'll notice that everything is grayed out here, right? So just watch, I'll get to that here in a second. But changing the messaging here is as simple as typing it in, copy and pasting. I have the ability to manage fonts. I have the ability to insert a table if I want to do, like at the beginning where I had a logo. I can embed images. I can embed links. I can even embed ability to launch into a separate process guide. All of that is completely available when you create these individual steps. In this one, as I mentioned before, everything is grayed out and it's drawing my attention up here to the menu button. Let's take a look at our settings for this. In my settings, I have what's called display settings. And it's as simple as a checkbox to say, do I want this all to be grayed out? Or do I want to make that available? Let me switch that over from border and overlay to border. And now you'll see that there's still a border, but now everything's available behind the scenes. There is no HTML coding for this. There's no need for understanding Java or any other kind of program. It's simply checkboxes and understanding how all these things work in combination, which of course we train you on how this all works. So I have the ability to manage the display settings. I can, change the width. Let's change that width from 280 to, let's say, we want that message to be 400 pixels, for example. And now that message sort of looks a little bit different. So that's my display settings. Activation settings will tell it to go ahead and advance when the user clicks the element. So it says here, click on the menu button. And so when they do that, the step knows to auto activate then the next step. It advances to the next step. So that's how it controls when it says when the user does the thing, go to the next step. A very simple checkbox. Lastly, I've got advanced settings, which allow me some more advanced things that we train you on how all this stuff kind of works. But the one I'll point you to, and let me move this toolbar over here. The one I'll point you to is this target selector. So this is what's tying the messaging to some kind of object on the PeopleSoft screen. So you don't need to know what this code means. I'm going to click on this. All you need to do is simply point and click. So I'm going to disconnect it from that button right up there, which I never would have known. It's called PTS category BTN. I would never know what that means, but I know how to look at something and point and select it. So let me drop this link. And now anything here, I can now select. So let me go ahead and select the recently used. And by selecting there, my messaging now pops up right over here. It's still got the border around that button. And now I don't know, again, I don't know the HTML, but it's going to capture the HTML for me. And now anytime the user comes in here, it's looking for the HTML, basically that object, and it's going to tie that messaging to that object. So very, very easy to learn how to build these guides. I'm going to, so I don't mess up this guide, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it or discard it. And I'm going to go back into my OGL tool. So very easy to do it. We do a training as part of licensing. We do training on exactly how this works, training workshop, and teach your folks how to do this. It's very easy. And our expectation is that every organization will take support analysts, maybe training analysts, and they will learn how to use this tool to build these guides. All right, let me discard this one and come back in here. And I got one more thing to show you, and then we can open it. Oh, actually, I got a couple more slides after that, but we'll pause for some questions. All right, so in here in my my OGL application, I want to look at the dashboards. This is my analytics piece, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and look at the activity dashboard. So it's got like about 8 or 9 different dashboards here. I'm going to look at the activity dashboard, and what you'll see here is a high level sort of metrics about who's running what are the top guides, what's my average feedback, when these guides were run. I can narrow down to a different time frame, quarter, for example. I can narrow in my filtering to look at certain modules. But let's say I set this up to every guide was attached to a certain module. I want to see my benefits, only guides within benefits versus guides within payroll, guides within campus community, that sort of thing. You can set up the modules however you want. They don't need to be tied to PeopleSoft modules. These modules are just whatever you want to create as modules in order for better analytics on the back end here. Of course, I could look at production or different environments I've got, all different kinds of ability to look at a more narrowing down of this information. So this is very high level, looking at very specific. Let me click on, let's say, feedback. And again, I'm going to look at the feedback associated with individual. So let me open this up to additional applications. So I got my campus applications, my HR, my financials applications. Let me open up to all of those and see what we've got across all of those. Let me open up for a little bit longer time frame. And for last year, I can see all of the feedback that's coming in across the board on all these different things. Let me narrow this down to look at, for example, the ones that we just ran, which was search. And we can see all the guides related to search. I can, narrow that down to only my financials, different applications. I can narrow it all the way down and look at all the feedback associated with that specific one. You'll see all me doing a bunch of demos here, right? So every time you see this is a demo I've done for somebody, right? So you see a lot of the same stuff, right? But anyway, point is you can see all that feedback across the board on all these guides and really get a sense of which guides are functioning better than others. Lastly, and this is the one I really love from a support perspective, I'm going to click on this one. This is the user one. And here, what I can actually get into is looking at users very, very specifically at a specific user to see what is this person doing now. This might be a use case where, let's say I'm taking a help desk call and I actually want to look at what this person has individually done. So I can click on our chanting here, look at this individual and get a whole breakdown of what they've done. So it tells me when they were running guides. It tells me which guides they were running mostly. If this person had provided any feedback, looks like this person has not provided any feedback. I can even get down to individual guides and look at how many runs they've created, last time they completed it, the level of engagement, which has its specific definition of how that works, average feedback. I get into a lot of details here that is now a tool for me to use as a support administrator, being able to help this person with whatever they're trying to do in PeopleSoft. Perhaps I come in here and see that they've never run a guide and now they're calling the help desk to ask for help. Well, I could simply say, hey, let's walk through that guide together and see if that helps you kind of do this thing on your own. And typically people will take you up on that offer and they won't call the help desk anymore on that specific process. Now, anybody that's out there in this audience that has to deal with support tickets, you might be really attracted to that kind of concept. I know I took a lot of calls from the same people over and over and over. So perhaps offering that in-app guidance might be helpful. Okay. With that, I know it's a very quick sort of overview of what you can do here with the Oracle Guided Learning tool. I'm going to stop sharing, and I just want to have a couple last slides on let's talk about licensing and let's talk about content, and we'll have a few questions, a few minutes for questions at the end. All right. Let me go ahead and expand that out. And this deck sounds like this deck will be available through the HUG website. So got more things talking about all the different things you can do here, and you can see that all in the deck. Okay, some frequently asked questions. Does it work on-prem? Yes. Does it work in classic mode? Yes. Multi-language? Yes. OGL 855 and higher, PeopleSoft 9.1 and higher, but really, what about other applications? Yes, it works for any HTML-based application. So the answer is yes. And the question is, well, what about pricing for those other applications? Let's talk about that. So SpearMC, as I mentioned, we were asked to provide this role to take OGL, build it out as a product and service to the PeopleSoft community. We've done that over the last 2 years. And because of that, we're the official and exclusive reseller of OGL for PeopleSoft. So we provide licensing for this. As part of that licensing, you get to use it for 3 total applications. PeopleSoft, all your PeopleSoft applications only counts as 1. So you get PeopleSoft plus 2 other applications that you can use this for. That's your standard licensing. If you want it for more 3 applications, we can adjust the licensing pricing to do that. It's always based on total employee. So in a higher ed situations, it counts students as well. In a situation, let's say you are a PeopleSoft customer and do not run campus solutions, you only run HCM or financials, there's some flexibility with looking at a different metric for you. We can get into that offline if you're in that situation. Typically, it's a 3-year term. And when you buy from us, there's a bundle of services that we provide, including installation or installation support, I should say, proof of concept, guide, build. So we build some guides and we kind of work with you to kind of work through how do you want to use this and how is this going to work for you? And so we kind of build some guides for you and kind of do some design standards, advisory services with you. We do a training workshop. And then as part of a multi-year licensing, we do an annual assessment optimization where we come back, we work with you, how it's working, how it can be adjusted, how it can be modified, or perhaps new guides being built. Now, question is, what about content? Well, that's where SpearMC comes in and builds. We've built our own content, okay? So we've got content across the 3 pillars, campus solutions, HCM, and financials. It covers most of the common actions that take place, and it offers a starting point for you to take the guides. They will work out of the box for you. They'll work, but you'll modify them perhaps to change the language, to change the branding, to change perhaps the links to your own help desk, that sort of thing. But the idea is that this will save a dramatic amount of time to make it an accelerated process for you to start up with this. So we publish these lists. If you want to get into details, we'll talk about that, and we can look at the specific guides. We're actually building more as part of this year. Right now, we've got about a little over 100 campus guides. We've got about 130 HCM guides and about 115, 120 financials guides. Okay. We have a little bit of a pathway if you want to take the next step, which I'm happy to sort of skip past because maybe not everyone wants to do that. So let me stop there and see if we've got a few minutes for questions. So Susan, do you want to go ahead and...
Sorry about that. Yes, there are a few questions here. In whatever questions we do not answer, I'm told that we can send the answers out after the fact. So quickly, can you give a high-level comparison, pros and cons between OGL and UPK?
Totally different. UPK is certainly just learning. It offers no in-application guidance. So with OGL being in-application guidance, it really opens the door to not just sort of making somebody memorize how to do something. And it can offer specific guided support within an application. It can also, based on conditions and basically monitoring what the user does, it can actually offer guidance where UPK would never, UPK is just sort of sitting there and makes the user know they need to get help. OGL can watch what the user is doing and perhaps even push messaging to people, say, hey, we can see you've entered this information. Just note that we don't pay back in Canadian dollar, for example. You need to change back USD. So it's a completely different tool than UPK.
And then while customizing any guides, if we run into any issues, will Oracle support help us fix the issue?
There's support for the way OGL works itself. So any sort of bugs, OGL is a SaaS. So I know, for example, even for us, 23C is the latest update that just came out last week, and it offered new features that we didn't have access to before. So as any software happens, it's going to fix things. There might be some things that are affected by that. They obviously offer support for all of that. Next question, Susan. I don't know if I lost audio, but Susan, I'll just go through. I see a couple more questions.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Now you're back.
Oh, okay. What will be the implementation time frame?
So totally based on how many guides you want to go live with. So generally speaking, a tenancy is created within about a week. That's from Oracle's perspective. We help you get it up and installed on your environment very quickly. If you want to import our starter kit guides, that happens again very, very quickly within a matter of days. And then it's just a matter of how ready are you to push that out into production. So you're going to want to build your own guides. If you want to go live with 5 guides, you're going to do that very, very quickly. If you want to take our starter kit guides and just make some slight modifications and push them into production, again, you can do that within a matter of days, really. It's a very, very fast process. If you want to build out 100 different guides, then of course that's going to take a little bit more time to build that out, especially if they're custom guides that are not built within the aren't replicated within our starter kit materials.
And here's a last one since we're out of time. Which browser is required for Oracle guided learning content development?
Generally, Chrome is used for the development, but anybody on any browser will be a user of OGL. OGL will pop up on any browser, but to develop, there's an add-in that you need in Chrome that helps you develop guides. So I know we're at the end of time. How do we get the rest of these answered?
So I'll be able to send those to you separately, the questions that weren't answered, so you can follow up with them.
The individuals at an individual level? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. So if I see some anonymous questions here. So if you want to re-ask your question under your actual name, then we'll be able to answer it directly. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to answer to anonymous. So I see a bunch of questions in here. And by the way, I'll just end on this slide right here. That's my email address. You can, and phone number. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I can answer all these questions. We can also do demos for your organization directly. So let's say you really like this and you want your organization to see it. You want to pull some people together to see if this might be an option for you. That's what I do. I've done literally probably about 100 demos over the last year and a half to 2 years. I'm happy to do that for your organization. We can then run all of the analysis, the pricing, all of that will come through me. So reach out, and I get Oracle involved. I let them know that you guys are interested. We work together essentially on the quote process. All of that is sort of the next steps if you want to take the next step and learn more about how this might work for your organization. With that, thank you so much for your time. I want to be really cognizant of the time. I'm actually 1 minute over, so appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, and happy to further the conversation with you and your organization.
And we just wanted to say thank you. The Hug would like to thank our presenter today for putting on a great webinar. Again, the recording and slides will soon be available in the eAcademy on-demand files. While you're there, make sure to check out the upcoming webinar schedule and events page. There's a survey at the end of this webinar that if you have a moment, we would love if you could fill it out. Again, we will be able to follow up individually with the unanswered questions. And thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.